My hands were trembling as I stood outside the door to the private suite. The soundproofing in a high-end lounge like this was top-notch, but I could still hear the faint thrum of music and laughter from within. And in that laughter, there was a voice so familiar it was etched into my soul. It was my wife, Claire. My temples throbbed. Blood rushed to my head, a dull roar in my ears. An hour ago, I'd received an anonymous text. The photo was low resolution, blurry even, but I instantly recognized the gaudy crystal chandelier and the corner logo. It was the Onyx Room, the VIP suite at a lounge near our old house. In the photo, Claire was wearing a tight, short dress I'd never seen before, leaning over to pour a drink for a man whose face was obscured. Her profile was fixed in a smile that was part eager, part submissive. The man's hand rested on her waist, a casual, proprietary gesture. The image was a steel needle, dipped in poison, driven straight into my heart. Claire and I were college sweethearts. We'd been in love for 10 years, from campus days to the wedding aisle. She was gentle, kind, a devoted wife and mother, the gold standard in our circle of friends. I'd gone from being a broke programmer with nothing to my name to the founder of a respectable tech firm, and I couldn't have done it without her unwavering support. Our son, Sammy, was 5 years old, a bright, bubbly kid who was the center of our universe. To the outside world, we were the picture of success, a perfect, happy family. But only I knew that our home was being hollowed out piece by painful piece. 6 months ago, Sammy was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The news was a lightning strike from a clear blue sky, shattering our happiness in an instant. Laughter vanished from our home, replaced by an endless cycle of chemo, spinal taps, and medical bills with astronomical figures. To pay for Sammy's treatment, we sold our house and moved into a rundown apartment complex. My company's cash flow was already strained, and to raise money for the medical costs, I'd leveraged nearly all of my equity, spending my days scrambling between investors, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Claire had quit her steady job to be at the hospital with Sammy full-time. She was always the one comforting me, saying we could always make more money, that as long as Sammy got better, we could endure anything. I thought we were the kind of couple that could weather any storm. I thought our love was unbreakable, until that photo arrived. The woman in the picture, with her heavy makeup, revealing dress, and fawning smile, was a stranger. She wasn't the Claire I knew, the woman who preferred a bare face and gentle grace. I couldn't believe that the woman who would agonize over buying a bottle of water just to save $1 for Sammy would be in a place like this, a den of vice and excess. The sender had included a message. "Hey, Ethan, your wife sure knows how to party. You have any idea what she gets up to out here?" In that moment, humiliation, rage, betrayal. Every emotion erupted like a volcano, incinerating my reason. I stormed out of my office, slammed the accelerator to the floor, and raced here. I took a deep breath, my lungs filling with cold air thick with jealousy. I didn't hesitate any longer. I threw open the heavy door to the suite. Crack! The door slammed against the wall and bounced back. The blaring music and laughter died instantly. Everyone stared at the entrance, stunned. I saw it all. The opulent room was filled with 7 or 8 overfed men, the air heavy with the stench of expensive scotch and cigars. And my wife, Claire, was standing right next to a middle-aged man they were calling Marcus. The same man from the photo, whose arm was around her. Now, his grip was even tighter, his hand clamped around her waist, practically pulling her into his lap. When Claire saw me, the color drained from her face. Her lips trembled, her eyes wide with panic and fear. Ethan, what are you doing here?" She instinctively tried to pull away from Marcus's grasp, but he only held her tighter. He shot me a sideways glance, a contemptuous smirk playing on his lips. Well, if it isn't Ethan Grant. What's this? Checking up on your wife." The men around him erupted in jeering laughter. "He's nothing special to look at, but his wife's a real knockout. You're a lucky man, Grant. Your wife is certainly accommodating." The filthy words were like daggers, slicing away at what little dignity I had left. My eyes were locked on Claire's face. Her makeup was thick, but I could still see the redness in her eyes, the tears she was desperately holding back. The dress she wore was made of scandalously little fabric, clinging to her body, leaving nothing to the imagination. Under the dim lights, I could even see a suspicious red mark on her neck. My world was collapsing. "Claire," my voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like my own. "What are you doing here dressed like that?" Claire couldn't form a single word. She just shook her head frantically, the tears finally breaking free, carving black streaks through her carefully applied eyeliner. "What's she doing?" Marcus laughed, his voice dripping with arrogance. He slapped Claire's ass, the sound sharp and clear. She's drinking with US, of course. Your wife can really hold her liquor, and she's a lot of fun. All the guys here are very satisfied. That slap detonated every last bit of gunpowder in my soul. I lunged forward, grabbed Marcus by the collar, and roared, my eyes bloodshot, "Get your filthy hands off her!" Marcus, momentarily stunned by my sudden attack, flew into a rage. "Who the hell do you think you are? You dare touch me?" His bodyguards immediately moved to surround me. "Don't move," Claire suddenly screamed. She wrenched herself free from Marcus and threw herself in front of me, her arms spread wide like a mother hen protecting her chick. "Ethan, calm down. Get out of here. This has nothing to do with you." She was crying, trying to push me away. "Nothing to do with me?" I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "My wife is here, entertaining other men, and you're telling me it has nothing to do with me? Claire, have you no shame? Please, just go, I'm begging you." Her voice was a desperate plea. The more she pushed, the hotter the fire in my chest burned. To me, it didn't look like she was protecting me. It looked like she was protecting her client. I shoved her away. The force was too much. She stumbled backward and fell, her elbow cracking against the glass coffee table. "Ah!" she cried out in pain. A gash opened on her arm, blood welling up instantly. But I was lost in a fog of rage, barely noticing. From the briefcase I always carried, I pulled out a stack of papers and threw them in Marcus's face. "Divorce papers. I've already signed them." I pointed at Claire on the floor, every word squeezed from between clenched teeth. "Claire, you love money, don't you? You love places like this? Fine, I'll give you what you want. This woman, I don't want her anymore. Any of you want her, she's all yours." After I said it, I felt completely drained, as if all the strength had been sucked out of me. The room fell into a dead silence. Claire sat on the floor, staring at me in disbelief. Her expression shifted from shock to agony, and finally, to the flat, gray look of utter despair. She wasn't crying anymore. She just looked at me, as if I were a complete stranger. "Ethan," she whispered my name. Her voice was as light as a feather, but it landed on my heart like a ton of bricks. "Is that really what you think of me? What else am I supposed to think?" I sneered, the pain in my chest so intense I could barely breathe, but the cruelest words kept pouring out. "Look at yourself. Do you think you're fit to be called Sammy's mom right now? You're filthy. Filthy." Claire repeated the word, then let out a low, chilling laugh. It was a sound so full of anguish and misery it made my blood run cold. She slowly pushed herself up from the floor, ignoring her bleeding elbow, ignoring the divorce papers scattered on the carpet. She stumbled over to Marcus. "Mr. Thorne," she said, lifting her head. Tear tracks streaked her face, but her smile was bizarrely radiant. "I'm sorry for the interruption. Please, don't worry. Our deal still stands." With that, she grabbed an unopened bottle of high-end scotch from the table. She didn't look for an opener. She smashed the neck of the bottle against the corner of the table. Crack! The glass shattered, liquor splashing everywhere. As everyone watched in horror, Claire raised the broken bottle with its jagged glass edges and started chugging it. "Claire, what are you doing?" I screamed, a wave of terror washing over me. I lunged to grab the bottle from her, but it was too late. A stream of dark red blood mixed with the amber liquid, spilling from the corners of her mouth. It was a horrifying sight. "Ha ha!" She was laughing maniacally as she drank, but tears streamed down her face like a broken dam. "Ethan, you said I was filthy? I'll be filthy for you tonight. You think I'd do anything for money? You're right, I would." She threw the broken bottle to the floor. Her blood-smeared lips were pointed at me, each word a cry of agony. "But Ethan, do you have any idea who I'm doing all this for?" In that instant, my mind went completely blank. "That's enough," a voice roared, shattering the insane spectacle. It was Marcus. His face was ashen as he stood up and kicked the coffee table over. He walked up to me, his eyes as cold as ice. "Grant, you are a complete and utter bastard. A coward." I just stared at him, stunned. He pointed at Claire, who had collapsed on the floor, blood trickling from her mouth, somewhere between laughing and sobbing. He yelled at me. "Do you have any idea why she's here? Do you know what she was just drinking?" "That drink was my idea. My rule. She came to me, begging me to save your son's life. I told her, you want my help? Fine. One glass of this, $100,000. Sing a song for me, $200,000. Keep my friends happy, and I'll think about it. You think she wanted to do this? You think she wasn't disgusted? She tried to call you a little while ago. You ignored it. You think I didn't see that? She sent you a text. It said, 'Ethan, I love you, wait for me to come home.' Did you even reply?" My heart felt like it had been struck by a sledgehammer. I fumbled for my phone. It was on silent. The screen lit up with a long list of missed calls, all from Claire. And there, in my messages, was the text she'd sent 15 minutes ago. I had been so blinded by rage. I'd seen her name pop up and immediately locked the screen without reading it. She told me she would only drink 3 glasses. After that, she was going to beg me to save Sammy, no matter what. Marcus's voice was now laced with a strange, sorrowful tone. I just wanted to see. I want to see how far a mother would go for her child. Save Sammy's life. I was completely lost, my voice trembling. What do you mean? Sammy's doctor said they found a match, a volunteer from the National Marrow Donor Program. A volunteer? Marcus let out a cold, mocking laugh. That's right. That volunteer is my son. Boom. A bomb went off in my head, obliterating all thought. The only person who could save Sammy's life was this man's son? How is that possible? How could the world be so small? No. The doctor said the donor was anonymous. My lips quivered. I couldn't accept this cruel reality. Anonymous? The scorn in Marcus's eyes deepened. That was my condition. I wanted to see what you, the father, were willing to do for your son. And what did you do? You came here, barking like a mad dog, humiliating the wife who was laying down her life to pave a path for your son. His every word was a razor-sharp blade, flaming alive. Your son doesn't have a common form of leukemia. It's a rare subtype. The only hope is a bone marrow transplant. None of your relatives were a match. Out of millions of records in the National Registry, my son's was the only one that was a perfect 10-point match. Claire found out somehow, I don't know how, and tracked me down to my company. She waited outside my office for 3 days, and I never even let her in. On the 4th day, there was a downpour. She just stood there in the rain from morning until night. My assistant couldn't stand it anymore and told me. Only then did I agree to see her. Marcus's voice grew deeper. He looked at Claire, lying unconscious on the floor, his expression complex. She knelt before me, begged me. She said she would pay any amount of money, even if it meant selling everything she had, even if it meant working for me for the rest of her life. I told her I don't need money. I asked her, besides money, what else do you have to offer? And then I told her to meet me here. I wanted her to know what it feels like to beg. I wanted her to know what it feels like to have your dignity crushed under someone's boot. My body began to shake uncontrollably. I looked at Claire. Her face was a mess of blood, liquor, and tears. She was a wreck. But in that moment, in my eyes, she was a goddess, covered in wounds but shining with a divine light. It wasn't a betrayal. She wasn't falling for grace. She was using her dignity, her body, even her life, to trade for our son's chance to live. And me? What had I done? I called her filthy. I threw divorce papers in her face. I had used the most vicious words imaginable to smash the hope she was building for our son into a million pieces. Arg! I let out a guttural cry of anguish and slapped myself hard across the face. The stinging pain was nothing, not even a fraction of the agony twisting in my heart. I crawled on my knees to Claire's side. I wanted to hold her, but I didn't dare touch her. I was afraid my hands would dirty her. Claire, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was sobbing, unable to say anything else. Claire's eyes fluttered open. She looked at me, her gaze vacant and distant. She didn't respond. She just lay there, a broken doll, her soul gone. What are you all standing around for? Call an ambulance. Marcus roared at his stunned entourage. The ambulance screamed as it arrived and screamed as it left. The light above the emergency room door stayed on for a long, long time. The doctor said Claire had acute alcohol poisoning, and the broken glass had lacerated her esophagus and mouth. She needed her stomach pumped and immediate surgery. By some miracle, she hadn't severed a major artery. I stood vigil outside the operating room like a ghost, the scenes from the suite playing over and over in my head. Marcus hadn't left. He sat on a bench across from me, chain-smoking. I couldn't read his expression through the haze of smoke. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse. Grant, do you know why I did this to you? I looked up, my eyes blank. I had a son too, he said, his eyes welling up. Same age as yours. 5 years ago, leukemia took him. My heart seized. Back then, I was just like you, frantically searching for a donor. We finally found one, but right before the surgery, the family backed out. It didn't matter how much I begged, how much money I offered, they wouldn't agree. I watched my son fade away, bit by bit, until he died in my arms. The last thing he ever said to me was, Daddy, it hurts so much. Marcus's voice choked. This powerful, intimidating man was now like a helpless child, tears carving paths through the wrinkles on his face. From that day on, I was filled with hate. I hated the world, hated the people who could save a life, but chose not to. I swore that if I ever held someone's life in my hands, I would make them feel the same despair I felt. So, when Claire found me, I admit my mind was twisted. When I looked at her, I saw myself all those years ago. I wanted to torture her, to humiliate her, to make her feel what it's like to have your dignity ground into the dirt for the sake of your child. I had even decided that even if she drank all the liquor, I still wouldn't agree. I wanted to leave her utterly hopeless. He closed his eyes, his face a mask of pain. But I never expected her to be so fierce. When she raised that broken bottle, I saw my wife. After our son died, she tried to... I didn't know what to say. In that moment, all the hatred found a tragic outlet. He wasn't a monster. He was just a pitiful man, driven mad by the grief of losing his child. The light above the operating room went out. A doctor emerged and told us Claire was out of immediate danger, but because of the damage to her esophagus and vocal cords, she might not be able to speak for a long time. I rushed into her room. She was lying on the bed, her face as white as a sheet, her neck wrapped in thick gauze, her arm covered in angry stitches. Her eyes were closed, a single tear clinging to her long eyelashes. I took her cold hand and pressed it against my cheek. "Claire, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'm a bastard. Wake up. Please hit me, scream at me, do anything." My tears fell silently onto the back of her hand. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching us for a long time. "Grant," he finally said, "tomorrow, I'll bring my son to the hospital for the pre-op tests. Let's schedule the surgery as soon as possible." I whipped my head around, unable to believe what I was hearing. "The marrow. I'll donate," he said, then turned and walked away, his back stooped and lonely. "Just consider it a good deed. In my son's name." I watched him go, a bitter cocktail of emotions churning inside me. The man who had brought us so much humiliation and pain had also, in the end, become our only savior. Claire was in the hospital for 2 weeks. She woke up, but just as the doctor had warned, she couldn't speak. She wouldn't look at me. Most of the time, she would just stare blankly at the ceiling, not crying, not smiling, not showing any emotion at all. I stayed by her side every day, feeding her, bathing her, telling her stories about her past. I told her about how we used to fight for seats in the college library, about how I was so nervous during my first confession of love that I stumbled over my words, about how she laughed like a child on our wedding day. I spoke until I was choked with tears, but she never reacted. It was as if her heart, along with the scotch bottle, had shattered on the floor of that suite. I didn't dare mention Sammy, afraid it would be too much for her. I had torn the divorce papers into shreds and thrown them away. But some things are more fragile than paper. Once broken, they can never be put back together again. Sammy's transplant went smoothly. Marcus kept his word. His son was a healthy, kind boy who, before the surgery, drew a picture for Sammy. It was of 2 little superheroes holding hands. After the operation, Sammy was moved to an isolation ward. Seeing his small body hooked up to so many tubes was like a knife to my heart. But the doctors said everything was going well. If he could get through the rejection phase, he had a very good chance of a full recovery. It was the silver lining to this nightmare, a lining bought with my wife's dignity and nearly her life. One day, after I finished feeding Claire her liquid meal, she suddenly moved. With a hand that didn't have an "4" in it, she shakily pointed to the notepad and pen on the nightstand. I quickly handed them to her. On the paper, with all her might, she wrote a few words, one painstaking stroke at a time. It was slow, deliberate, as if it was taking every ounce of her life force. I leaned in to look. The paper read, "Let's get a divorce." My heart plummeted. I squeezed her hand, shaking my head frantically. "No, Claire, no. I was wrong. Please, forgive me just this once, okay? We have Sammy. Sammy needs his family together." She didn't look at me. She just took the pen back and wrote another line. "I'm dirty." Those 2 words, like a pair of poison daggers, stabbed me in the heart all over again. They were the words I had thrown at her, now returned to me in her own handwriting. She felt dirty. She couldn't get over the barrier in her own mind, a barrier that I had built for her, brick by brick. "No, you're not dirty," I yelled, my vision blurred with tears. "Claire, you are the purest, most noble woman I have ever known. I'm the one who's dirty. I'm a bastard. I was blind." She slowly shook her head, then closed her eyes, refusing to engage with me any further. From that day on, she refused to eat. No matter how much I begged, she remained unmoved. She was punishing me and herself in the cruelest way possible. Her body wasted away before my eyes, her already pale face turning a sickly, sallow yellow. I was in a complete panic. I brought in doctors, psychologists, our parents, our friends. Everyone tried to reason with her, but she was unreachable. I knew her spirit was broken. Just as I was about to lose all hope, an event occurred that sent massive shockwaves through our already shattered lives. I was at the office trying to deal with some urgent business, scrambling to secure funds for Sammy's ongoing recovery costs. I got a call from Marcus Thorne. His voice sounded exhausted, and there was a slight tremor in it. "Ethan, I need you to come to the law offices of Sterling and Croft. Right now." A knot of dread formed in my stomach. When I arrived and pushed open the door to the VIP conference room, I froze. Marcus was sitting there, dark circles under his eyes, his expression haggard. And sitting across from him were my own parents-in-law, Claire's mother and father. They looked at me, their expression strained. My father-in-law, Robert, turned his head away completely, refusing to meet my eyes. "Robert, Sarah, what are you doing here? With Mr. Thorne?" I asked, completely bewildered. A lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Grant, here's the situation. Regarding the bone marrow donation from Mr. Thorne's son, some new information has come to light that we need to discuss with you as family." New information? My heart clenched. Was Marcus backing out? The lawyer glanced at Marcus, then at my father-in-law, and delivered a sentence that struck me like a bolt of lightning. "According to the latest DNA relationship test report, Mr. Thorne's son, Noah, and your father-in-law, Mr. Robert Miller, share a biological grandfather-grandson relationship. In other words, Noah is Ms. Claire Miller's half-brother." My mind went completely blank. Marcus Thorne's son was my father-in-law's illegitimate child? Then, that meant he was Claire's biological brother. How was this possible? This was insane. I stared at my father-in-law in disbelief. His face was etched with shame. His head hung so low it nearly touched his chest. My mother-in-law sat beside him, silently wiping away tears. What the hell is going on?" My voice was trembling. Marcus stubbed out his cigarette and spoke slowly, his voice raspy. "It's simple. My son, Noah, is not my biological son. Years ago, my ex-wife had an affair." His words were another bombshell. "When we divorced, she left the boy with me. All these years, I thought I raised him as my own. It wasn't until we did the comprehensive medical workup for the transplant, which included a routine DNA test for me, that I discovered the truth. I did some digging. The man my ex-wife had an affair with was your father-in-law, Robert Miller." Marcus looked at me, his eyes filled with an indescribable weariness and self-mockery. "So, Ethan, do you get it now? The person who donated bone marrow to your son wasn't some random stranger. It was your wife's own brother." I was floored. What kind of sick cosmic joke was this? Claire had risked her life and soul to beg a supposed stranger for help, only for that stranger to be her own flesh and blood. And my father-in-law, the source of this entire catastrophe, had stayed silent through it all. "Dad!" I spun toward Robert, my eyes red. "Is this true? Tell me this isn't true." My father-in-law shuddered and finally looked up, his face streaked with tears. "Ethan, it's true. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to you, to Claire, to her mother." It turned out that over 20 years ago, during a business trip, Robert had a drunken one-night stand with a woman, Marcus's ex-wife. She later gave birth to Noah, but never told Robert. When she married Marcus, she passed the child off as his. It wasn't until Marcus uncovered the truth recently that he tracked Robert down. And my in-laws had found all this out just days before Claire went to see Marcus. "Then why didn't you say anything?" I was practically screaming. "If you had just told Claire, she wouldn't have had to suffer that humiliation. She wouldn't be lying in a hospital bed. I couldn't go on. The pain was suffocating. We were scared." My mother-in-law sobbed. "Your father. He was terrified. He was afraid if this came out, our family would fall apart. He was afraid I would divorce him, that Claire would disown him. We thought, after Mr. Thorne agreed, after the surgery was done, we would find the right time to tell you all slowly." Slowly? I was about to lose my mind. "Do you have any idea what your selfishness and cowardice cost Claire?" I couldn't imagine how Claire would react if she knew the truth. She had fought to the death to protect not just her son's life, but the integrity and honor of our family. And in the end, the root of all her suffering was a dirty secret from her beloved father's past. It was the cruelest irony of all. "Ethan," Marcus suddenly stood up. He walked over and handed me a document. "Take a look at this." I took it. It was a conditional donation agreement. I know this is a huge shock, but as of now, I am no longer Noah's legal guardian. Robert Miller is. Legally speaking, the decision to donate rests with him. My heart sank as I looked at my father-in-law, who was pale and trembling. However, Marcus continued, "I've raised Noah for years. I have a bond with him, and Robert has agreed to grant me continued guardianship. So, at the end of the day, I'm still the one calling the shots. and I have one condition." He pointed to the agreement. "I want 30% of Helios Tech. You give me that, and I guarantee the surgery will proceed without a hitch, and I will cover all of Noah's and Sammy's future recovery expenses." I was stunned. Helios Tech was the product of 10 years of my life. It was struggling now, but it had a bright future if it could just survive this crisis. 30% was practically half the company. One moment, he was donating out of a shared sense of tragedy. The next, he was a ruthless businessman, all sentiment gone. Why? I looked at him, searching his face for an answer. Why? I asked aloud. Marcus looked at me, his expression a dense, unreadable fog. There is no why. In business, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. Before it was personal, now it's business. He paused, a hint of heaviness in his voice. Or you could think of it as me collecting a little child support and emotional damages on behalf of my son from his deadbeat biological father. His gaze went past me, landing coldly on my father-in-law. I understood instantly. This wasn't about the money. This was revenge. He was using this to punish Robert for his past betrayal and irresponsibility. He was taking a piece of my company, a company that was only in crisis because I was trying to save Sammy. Every piece was connected, and the final price would still be paid by our family. It was a cold, cruel, psychological game, far more brutal than the humiliation he'd inflicted on Claire in the suite. I agree. I said it before my father-in-law could fall to his knees and beg. At this point, what other choice did I have? Sammy's life was in his hands. Claire's sacrifice could not be for nothing. Ethan, you... Robert looked at me, shocked. I ignored him, looking straight at Marcus. I agree. 30% of the company, it's yours. But I have a condition, too. Name it. Claire can never know about this. Any of it. I don't want her to be hurt again. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He looked at me, a deep, long look, and finally he nodded. Done. I walked out of the law firm in a daze. Night had fallen, and the city's neon lights were flickering on, but they couldn't penetrate the darkness in my heart. I felt like a puppet, dangled and manipulated by the giant hands of fate. Our family was fighting with everything we had to climb out of the mire, only to be dragged deeper and deeper into the vortex. And this time, at the center of it all, was the man I had always respected as my father-in-law. I returned to the hospital. Claire was still lying there, as quiet as a wilting flower. I sat by her bed, holding her hand, my heart filled with a bottomless sorrow. Claire, how can I ever tell you? How can I tell you that the chance at life you sold your soul for was from your own blood, a debt owed by your father? How can I tell you that our family has been completely gutted by his mistake? I couldn't say a word. I had to carry this crushing secret alone. Perhaps because the agreement was signed, removing any uncertainty, Sammy's recovery went remarkably well. A month later, he was successfully discharged from the isolation ward. He was still weak, but his vitals were improving day by day. The doctors said he was a little miracle. When I told Claire the good news, a faint glimmer of light finally appeared in her vacant eyes. That day, I brought Sammy from his ward so he could video chat with his mom. When Sammy's pale but smiling face appeared on the screen and he called out Mommy in his small voice, Claire's tears burst forth like a broken dam. It was the most intense emotional reaction she'd had since the incident. She covered her mouth, her whole body shaking with sobs. I knew then that for her son, she had finally found the will to live. From that day on, she started cooperating with her therapy, trying to eat, working on her speech. She grew stronger every day. Her voice was still hoarse and raspy, but she could manage a few simple words. The ice between us seemed to be thawing. She no longer looked at me like a complete stranger. Sometimes, when I told her a joke, the corner of her mouth would twitch into something resembling a smile. I thought that as long as Sammy was okay, with enough time, everything would slowly heal. I was too naive. Some scars may look healed, but the slightest touch can make them bleed all over again. The day Claire was discharged, I went to handle the paperwork. When I got back to her room, she was gone. On the bed, there was only a note. The handwriting was still unsteady, but it was firmer than before. Ethan, I'm sorry. Please forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye. Thank you for taking care of me, and thank you for everything you've done for Sammy. Seeing him healthy again gives me peace. But I can't face you anymore, and I can't face our family. Every word you said in that suite is branded on my heart. You said I was dirty. You said I wasn't fit to be Sammy's mom. I know you were angry, but it was also what you truly felt. In your heart, I will always be that unclean woman. We can't go back. I've done a lot of thinking. I remembered us in college. You had a light in your eyes back then. When you looked at me, it was pure love. Now all I see in your eyes is guilt, pity, and a heavy sense of duty. That's not love, Ethan. I saw the divorce papers. They were in the trash can in the room. You thought I didn't notice. You were right. We should get a divorce. Don't look for me. Find a good, clean woman and start over. As for Sammy, I will watch over him from afar. When he's older, if he wants to, I'll tell him that his mother loves him. Always. Goodbye, Ethan. I wish you, and I wish myself, peace. I crumpled the note in my hand, my fingers shaking uncontrollably. I ran out of the hospital like a madman, calling everyone I knew to help me find her. I checked security footage, her ID records, every place she could possibly go. But she had vanished as if into thin air. She left so completely, without a penny, without a single piece of clothing. She took nothing with her but my entire world. Time is the best medicine and the deadliest poison. 3 years later, Sammy was 8, a healthy, handsome little boy. The leukemia had left almost no trace on him. Apart from his annual checkups, he was just like any other kid. My company, with Marcus's capital injection and resources, had not only recovered, but had become a unicorn in the industry. We even joined forces, becoming the most effective partners in the business world. My relationship with Marcus was complex. We never spoke of the past, only the future. He would sometimes bring his son, Noah, over to play with Sammy. The two boys, connected by blood, shared an uncanny bond. Every time I saw them together, a sharp pain lanced through my heart. I had kept the secret for 3 years. My in-laws, crippled by guilt, had almost no contact with me, only occasionally visiting Sammy in secret. I never remarried. Everyone told me I was still young, that Sammy needed a mother. But they didn't know my heart had left with Claire. I never stopped looking for her. I went to all the places we had been, the hilltop where we fell in love, the movie theater where we had our first date, the city where we went to college. I visited them all, but found no trace of her. She was like a shooting star that had blazed across my life and then disappeared completely into the darkness. Until one day, I received a phone call from a small town in the Pacific Northwest. The caller was the director of a local nonprofit. He said that during a charity event for a rural school, he had met a teacher named Ms. Miller. This teacher had arrived 3 years ago and had been quietly teaching the children to read and draw. Mr. Grant, it was by accident. In an old sketchbook of hers, tucked between the pages, we found your business card and a family photo. We thought she might be the person you're looking for. My heart, after 3 years of dormancy, began to beat so violently it felt like it would break through my ribs. I immediately booked the earliest flight. After hours on a plane and another 7 or 8 hours on a bus winding through mountain roads, I finally arrived in the small town, a place so remote it was barely a speck on the map. The town was poor but beautiful. Green mountains, clear streams, and smoke curling lazily from chimneys. I found her in the dilapidated schoolhouse at the edge of the village. She was standing in front of a worn-out blackboard, teaching a group of grubby-faced children. She wore a simple cotton dress, her hair in a ponytail, her face free of makeup. The mountain sunlight streamed through the window, bathing her in a soft, gentle glow. Her voice wasn't loud. The damage to her vocal cords left it with a slight rasp, but it was clear and pleasant. She was thinner and tanner, but her eyes were incredibly bright. They held a light I had never seen before. It wasn't the despair she had shown me, or the emptiness from her hospital bed. It was a peaceful, steady radiance that came from deep within her soul. The children adored her, swarming around her, chirping Ms. Miller, Ms. Miller. In that moment, I understood. She wasn't dirty anymore. She had washed herself clean. With the mountain breeze, the clear streams, and the innocent smiles of these children, she had scrubbed away every last stain she felt she carried. I didn't approach her right away. I stood under the large banyan tree outside the classroom, just watching her. I watched her teach, watched her lead the children in games after class, and watched her walk each of them home. Only when the sun began to set and a hush fell over the village did she finally see me. Our eyes met. Across 3 years of time, across mountains and rivers, across a chasm that could never be bridged. There was a flicker of panic in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a profound calm. She was like an ancient well, her surface unruffled by any stone I could cast. You're here, she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. I'm here. I walked towards her, each step feeling like I was walking on glass. Claire, I came to take you home. Home. She gave a small, self-deprecating laugh, a hint of distance in it. Ethan, this is my home. Sammy misses you, I said, playing my only card. At the mention of our son, her composure finally cracked. A flash of pain crossed her face. Is he okay? He's great, healthy and handsome. We fell into silence. Finally, I summoned all my courage, pulled a velvet box from my pocket, and got down on one knee before her. Claire, I know this is ridiculous, saying this now, but I have to. I opened the box. Inside was a new ring. These 3 years, I've done a lot of thinking. I understand now. In that suite, the one who was dirty wasn't you. It was my eyes, my heart. I was blinded by jealousy and my own pathetic male pride. That's why I said those horrible things. I'm even grateful to Marcus. He made me see how stupid I was, how unworthy I was of you. I've carried this ring with me every single day. I told myself that if I ever found you, I would propose to you all over again. Whether you say yes or no, I need you to know that in my heart, you are and always will be the most noble, most worthy person to be loved. Claire, please, give me another chance. We don't have to go back to that noisy city. We can stay here, or we can go anywhere you want. As long as the 3 of us are together, anywhere is home. I looked up at her, my face wet with tears. She listened quietly, without crying, without smiling. The last rays of the setting sun stretched her shadow long and thin behind her. She looked at me, then at the rolling mountains in the distance, and finally, she gently shook her head. Ethan, she began, her voice so soft it felt like it might dissolve in the wind. Go home. Why? I asked, refusing to give up. She knelt, bringing her face level with mine. Her fingers, gentle as ever, brushed across my cheek, wiping away a tear. Her touch was familiar and tender, but her eyes were filled with a deep, sorrowful compassion. Because we don't belong to the same world anymore. I loved you, Ethan. I loved you with all of my youth, with every fiber of my being. But that love, it died in that suite. It died the moment you threw those divorce papers at my feet. I know what happened afterwards. I flinched, staring at her in disbelief. How could she know? Did her parents tell her? Impossible. You don't have to guess, she said, as if reading my mind. Marcus came to see me. A year ago, my heart sank into a black abyss. He told me everything. About his son's real father, about my father's scandal, and about the agreement you made, trading 30% of your company for his silence. He said that at first, he really did want revenge. But later, seeing me in that hospital bed, seeing my father on his knees begging, seeing you trying to carry the whole burden to protect the secret, he suddenly felt it was all meaningless. He said the sins of the previous generation shouldn't be our burden to bear. He came to find me not to reopen old wounds, but to untie the knot in my heart. He told me I had done nothing wrong, and that you hadn't either. We were just caught in a cruel twist of fate. He gave me back the equity agreement. Claire went into her small room and came back with the very document I had signed. She handed it to me. He said this wasn't a price you should have to pay. He said it was his compensation, as a man who had also made mistakes, to me and to our family on behalf of my father. I stared dumbly at the papers, my mind a complete blank. Ethan, Claire looked at me, and for the first time, her eyes glistened with tears. But they were tears of release, of absolution. We both did our best. For Sammy, for our family, we gave everything we had. But we're both so tired. Look, she said, pointing toward the sunset. It's peaceful here. There's none of that drama, none of that pain. Here, I'm just Ms. Miller. The children need me. This is where I can find myself again. I forgive you, Ethan. I forgive my father, too. I even forgive fate. And I'm asking you to forgive me. Forgive me for not being able to go back. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid if I go back and see the guilt in your eyes, I'll remember the pain of that night. I'm afraid the scars we've both worked so hard to heal will be torn open all over again. The love is gone, but we can still be family. From now on, let me just be Sammy's Ms. Miller. You can bring him to visit me during his school breaks. That would be nice. After she finished, she stood up, gently closed the ring box in my hand, and placed it in my palm. Go home. It's getting dark. The mountain roads are dangerous at night. She turned and walked back into the simple schoolhouse, closing the door softly behind her. There was no hesitation, no last look back. I remained kneeling on the ground, the cold ring box in my palm, my vision of the world dissolving into a blur of tears. I knew in that moment that I had lost her for good. We had defeated disease, defeated hatred, defeated the ugliness and selfishness of human nature, only to be defeated by the scars in our own hearts, scars that we could never cross. The sun set, and darkness swallowed the mountains. I felt as if I were back at the door of that cold, private suite, my hands trembling. Except this time I knew, behind that door, the woman I loved was no longer waiting for me to come home. Some doors, once you open them, you can never go back through. Some people, once you lose them, they're gone for a lifetime.